Hello and welcome to another tutorial in Maya. Today it's all about taking a look at going underwater. You'll see right here we have a basic craft cruising through the water, and you'll notice that you see an animated textural pattern here. So this is really cool. This is a preset that you can open up directly in Maya and sort of tweak its properties to give you some really cool results. And it's basically as easy as just importing a file, and it's built in to Maya. So we'll find that under Paint Effects. But for the moment, let's take a look at what this preset does. It basically sets up an underwater environment, and it has an animated texture. It's kind of like a fake caustic, so to speak. And then I basically just created a craft and then parented a little emitter stream, particle emitter stream from there. So then the camera movement is just sort of moving across the way here, tracking it. But this is sort of the default settings that you'll get with this this underwater scene. So I'm going to push pause here for a second, or actually, as this is moving through, let's look at this water because we want to see what the problems are to begin with. And you'll notice right away that you'll see a lot of mathematical consistency in the way that just the way it looks. It looks too, too perfect. So there's ways to correct for that later, and we'll take a look at that as soon as we open up this this file. So that's just something to be aware of. I'm going to push pause here for a second after it gets up to here. Push pause. Basically, I just parented an emitter stream right here, and then just put a shader on these particles. They're the point type particles, and I think I just upped the point size a little bit. So anyway, that's how the simulation looks at the moment. So let's move over to Maya and take a look at how to get started with this preset underwater, and how to work with its various properties. So it's really cool. So let's open up Maya for a second and take a look at where I'm at in the scene now. As you can see, I've changed the scene around a lot. I've basically just added some geometry, simple geometry. I've attached a fractal texture, 2D texture to this, so no big deal. These are just some toruses that are I made one, duplicated it, and it's basically just a regular Lambert. Okay, so I'm going to bring over my hypershade here for a second, and I'll show you what the Lambert that I have attached to the wall looks like. This. It just has a fractal, attached. I messed with the properties a little bit there, so, and then just changed its color to this green. Okay, so with that in mind, I also added a spotlight up here. And this is the actual part of the scene that you open up. So it sets up an underwater environment for you to then start creating all sorts of other geometry. Super cool. Okay, so here's what I want to show you. We're going to work our way backwards first. I want to show you sort of what this scene looks like. I have mental ray on, and I think I'm at production quality, but in terms of later on, we want to switch back to just standard draft mode so we can do these quick renders to find out what's going on with this stuff. But I have to start in the end first to sort of give you an idea of what you're looking at. You'll notice that mathematical consistency is still kind of showing up down here on this this plane, and it has some problems with it. You can see where this banding is going on here, and that's really important. And you'll work yourself into situations where this will show up, and it's real hard to create a tutorial where this is going to happen. So I mean, it'll show up no matter what, but just be aware that we need to deal with this first. Okay, so this ugly blue band I don't like here, and I want to show you how to kind of get to those controls to change that. So if you open up your hypershade, and you'll notice that you have a couple of different options with the presets that were in your start of the scene. And what we're interested in here is the envelope fog material. And if you click on that, just make sure you choose tools on and click on that one. That should give you that node. So let's take a look at this node, and see what happens to the render. Now I'm going to switch my render back down a little bit. Right now I'm in mental ray production settings, but I think in this case let's just go back to draft while we're doing some adjustments, and we'll kind of go from there. I might even want to look at what size I have this at. See, I'm fairly large now, so I may want to drop down to 640 by 480 just for immediate rendering purposes. So let's take a quick render at low res, and you'll see there it is. And there's the banding. Okay, now this banding right here, you have to be aware of this fog system is interacting with some other stuff, some lights and a volume shape and whatnot. And what we're really interested in is make sure that your environmental fog material is on, like it is. And you'll notice you have all sorts of options to work with some various stuff here. What we're interested in the moment is the water color, the water opacity, and in this case, what we're going to do for this banding right here is we're going to look at this water level, okay? So right now it's set at a fairly low level, and I did this just for illustrative purposes. So let's see what happens to this banding as we move this water level up. I'll just go ahead and move it up to say like 20, and we'll see what happens. We'll do a render, and as you notice, I have a lot more spread now. And it's a matter of fine-tuning that spread on that light in order to kind of start making other adjustments. You can go ahead and make adjustments however you want, but that has a lot to do with that banding in the middle. And I want you to be really aware of that because you know, it can make a big difference in depending on what you're doing. So let's say I just bring that water level up to 30. Let's see what happens there. Okay, so you can see I have a lot of, you know, it looks underwater, it looks pretty cool and whatnot, so yeah, I can live with that. All right, so the other things you have to deal with down here as you're in this preset is your water color, and you'll notice that is pretty much what the watercolor is. I mean, you can change that up to anything you want. Let's say we switch it over to a green like that, do a quick render. See, so I don't like that, so I'll just, let's do a Z maneuver. All right, and let's see where we're at. Okay, so anyway, you get the idea. You can change your watercolor. The opacity level has a lot to do with stuff too. If you were to go into your opacity and bring that up, you'll notice that it gives you quite a bit different look. You know, so you have less transparency through the water. That's one of the main things to look at as you're dealing with, you know, the look of your scene here is that water opacity level. And I'll just keep bringing it down a little bit. I'm kind of going for a deep underwater, so you get the idea. Just mess with your opacity, and that'll, you know, give you some really cool options there. Now, the next thing that you want to look at too is your water depth. The water level controls that depth, but if we bring our depth down here really low to a 26, chances are it gives it a little bit, see where it starts to get really weird. So you want to make sure that you give that some good depth. So anyway, in this case, I'm pumping my depth up into the 250 level. Let's see what happens. So you'll be doing a lot of rendering like this, a lot of fine tuning, and eventually you'll lock onto something that looks awesome. Okay, so let's go back up to, I'm gonna bring that density level down a little bit, and yeah, so essentially you get the idea. You can sort of fine tune this way. All right, and there you go. So it's not too hard. You can also mess around with your sun intensity and the sun color and stuff. You know, if I want to really make that super bright, might want to bring up my sun intensity a little bit. And those are really kind of the simple controls that you have to play around with this this physical sun and sky system. Yeah, so It's just a matter of dialing that in to just the right amounts. And remember, with this system, you can add other lights. I have a spotlight that I added in this scene. So, let's see if we can. I'm going to bring that intensity level down a bit. See if I can get back to where I was. Yeah, close enough. Let's zoom in here a little bit. You'll notice that I have my spotlight up here. Well, let's see. Let's move down here. There's the spotlight up there. And let's kind of zoom in a little bit more on here. And take a quick render. So you can see as you get closer to that light and change positions when you're using this underwater stuff, you're going to really have to fine tune your lighting. You're going to really have to fine tune the angle, blah blah. And in this case that's a little too much because we're kind of close to the light source. But let me back off a little bit here. Yeah, we'll just go for something like this. We'll do a quick render. Oop. Yeah, see, so you might want to look at some different angles to see what's happening and then just sort of fine-tune everything. Okay, well, it's time to get on to showing you how to open this thing up and get started. I'm gonna try one more quick render just to see what it looks like from this angle. Alright, so the closer I get, the more this light starts to be a little too much. So for the moment, why don't I go back here? I'm going to just sort of select this light and I'm going to switch it off. I think I'll just turn its visibility off. And we'll turn off its visibility. Okay, so in this case, I may want to just save the scene that I'm working on, and I'll just hit continue. And now let's sort of just create a new scene. So I'm going to go to File and New Scene, and there we go. So make sure that you're in your rendering menu set and come up into your render, or in your paint effects, and let's get a brush. And that should open up your visor, which will look like this. And what we're interested in here is some various things along these top tabs. So let's click on Ocean Examples. And in this case, what we're interested here is in underwater caustics. So make sure your Choose tool is active. Choose this one, turn yellow, and then right mouse click, and you'll be able to import that file into Maya, right? So that's the trick of unlocking this little gem. Okay, so I just did that. All right, let's move this out. As you can see, the default settings are right here, and if I were to do a quick render in the default setting, this is what I get. And as you can see, this is just sort of a starting point, and you can see where it doesn't look real. There's just too much activity going on down there. So let's take it at another angle. I'm going to go ahead and just sort of come up here, and you'll notice that your horizon line is back here. And let's just sort of take it from a different angle. I'll go a little deeper down here, maybe zoom in a little bit. And all right, so there's my render now. So you can see where immediately you have some pretty good starting points for working with adding geometry to and whatnot. You'll notice that this texture is down there. It looks pretty good. It doesn't look too mathematically perfect. And if I bring this out here, if we actually take a different angle and maybe go at a more of a downward angle like that, you'll notice that this pattern shows up a lot worse. I mean, it definitely looks CG. So we want to be aware of that and try and minimize that whenever you can. So just a good pointer there. And let's go take a look at what it looks like now from a little bit lower angle. So I'm just going to come a little closer to the to the overall center ground there. And now let's take a look. So you can see by kind of getting the right angle on it, it minimizes that look, that perfect, oh, this was set up by a computer kind of look. All right, so that gets you started there. Now, What else are you going to look for in this scene? The best thing to do is sort of open up the outliner here and take a look at what is actually in the scene. They have an ambient light that's set up. I'm going to move this render view out of the way. So you can tell that the ambient light is here, and that's its color and its intensity. It's illuminating by default, blah, blah. All right, now we also have a directional light. If I click on this, that's our directional light. This is the color that's assigned to it. That's its intensity and whatnot. And if you look at shadows, you want to be aware of what's happening here, because you have your depth map shadows by default. And then usually you want to maybe switch over to ray trace shadows. I'm much more of a mental ray trace shadows, so I usually switch to there because that's always a good setting to go with. And then you can mess with your light angle and shadow rays later, but anyway. And then you'll also notice there's another light in the middle here. I'm going to switch to that. This is the environment fog, and you'll notice that the environment fog as well has a light attached to it. All right, and it's not illuminating by default, but you can mess with that and see what it does. But anyway, that's the way that one works. All right, so the only other thing they have set up in this system is the default underwater cam. You can use this or not use this. This just gives you a camera starting point, and there you go. So that's it. But you'll also notice that there is a circle right here, and that is sort of like your environment fog shape. In this case, it's just an all-inclusive sort of, pre-start that they set up there with the fog. So you can get into your fog shape and, your fog light, and that's about it. The rest is up to you. You'll notice that I usually like to just sort of create a couple of things as reference objects to start with, and in this case a sphere always looks good underwater. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to just sort of bring this up a little bit, and we'll leave it right about there. And maybe got to get kind of down here and looking at the object and realize this is the floor, the seabed, so to speak. So let's give it a quick render. As you can see, that's what I have. Now, let's take another closer look. I'm not seeing a shadow in there. So, the one thing you want to start doing is looking at, what is happening with that scene. Let's see if we get a shadow. I'm going to render again, and I don't see a shadow. So in this case, you want to make sure that you go into your render options and start fine-tuning from there. And also look at your lights to make sure your shadows are actually on. But in this case, I'm going to switch over to mental ray, and let's do a quick render in mental ray and see what happens. Okay, there you go. So in mental ray, because I'm using ray trace shadows, is the reason that it's sort of taken over there. And remember, you can vary your ray trace shadows all sorts of different ways, but now that we're in mental ray, everything looks pretty good. And then you might want to come into mental ray and open up your quality settings, switch from maybe draft to down to production, and then just sort of look at your features. Maybe turn on global illuminations. We're not really using caustics because that's more like glass and real reflections. We're faking it with a texture. So anyway, that's the case there. So let's do another quick zoom in over here. Let's see if I can do a quick render, and we'll see those shadows, and then it's all a matter of just adjusting those shadows with this from this light. So sometimes you're going to definitely be going to your outliner, and let's just choose that directional light, bring our angle up a little bit, bring our shadow rays up a bit, maybe our ray depth up. All right. So that's something to always think about too, is how do shadows, reflect underwater? And in this case, this is a much better shadow than before, and that's just, tweaking your ray trace shadow settings. And anyway, that's cool. So let's go back to the hypershade and look at a couple of other last minute things. you'll notice that you also have this Lambert 1 that's by default attached to that plane or to that material, and that is your ocean settings. And up here you can see where you have a texture sample. Well, our current render looks like this, and you can see where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. If you move your texture sample frequencies a bit, you might be able to bring it down in frequency and get less. Do a quick render. You can kind of vary the look of what's happening there. You can see where they're a lot less in redundancy. You can bring your scale down or up depending on what you're doing, but I'm going to bring those frequencies way down, and let's take a look at what we got there. So you get the idea. It's just sort of like messing with that to give you a really cool look, and you know, you can check your wave height out. You can see where they preset these to kind of give it some variance, and yeah. So essentially, in this preset, the texture is already animated. So this texture right here is sort of meant to be kind of spinning around on the object, and that gives you this nice, you know, that nice caustic kind of moving around on the bottom of the ocean kind of thing. So I usually set mine up to about 1200 frames and then get started. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too confusing. I'm confused. I'm just wondering if I got it all. Anyway, those are some things to be concerned with as you're making an underwater scene. And I think I'll just go back to my previous file there, and I'm not going to save that. And now I'm ready to go. So there it is. You know, just play around with that. Sort of a good thing to kind of get used to. You'll be doing a lot of rendering, so enjoy your rendering moments. Get a big cup of coffee. Let's do another quick rendering on this. All right. So I'm going to keep working on this, and I'll make this thing move around and follow it through with some cameras and stuff. But anyway, you get the idea, and it's all about the concept and working with this underwater system as a starting point. You know, there's a lot of other ways to do it, and probably better ways, but this is really a great kind of starting point for you. So, all right. Well, I hope you learned something as always, and I commend you for taking the time to watch this tutorial and learn something. And just remember, read a book every day and be a great person. All right? Thanks for watching.